Hey guys, this is Kage here. Just wanted to make a quick video on how to identify gear sets, and hopefully using this tool that I personally use myself, you'll be able to predict character performances in the game, in the match, or any other future characters that get posted in the announcements. A lot of people have been asking me questions on how I identify gear sets, and it is pretty confusing, I will admit. The funny thing about the human brain is that we don't like numbers. We like to associate things with numbers, and that helps us to remember things. But overall, if you look at characters' stats, and then you see the gear bonuses right next to their stats, it tells us absolutely nothing if we don't have anything to contextualize that information with. So, first things first, I do want to start us off with a post that Ogre made a few years back. Basically, he made a post saying that there are 3 classes of gear sets a character can fall into. So when a character is made, they fall into one of 3 classes: tank, striker, or support. And within these categories, there's 3 types of gear sets: physical, special, and mixed. Now, obviously it's pretty straightforward. Physical characters will use physical strength for damage. Special characters will use intelligence. Mixed will use both. Tanks, it just describes that they have higher HP and stamina bonuses from their gear. Striker means that they have higher offensive values. And support, things do get a little goofy, and we'll cover that later. I can give you the link to this chart here. It does go very much into depth, but really you don't need to memorize all the bonuses, but there are key attributes to each gear set that helps you to remember things about each gear set. So, starting with physical tanks, okay? And tanks in general, there's 3 types: physical, special, and mixed. With physical tanks, they do have the highest HP bonuses of any tank, of any gear set actually in the game. Special tanks, second place, and then mixed tanks will have the lowest, but still considerably higher, given the other gear set types. How I like to remember these physical, how I like to memorize all 3 of these tank gear sets is pretty much what I just told you about the HP, 11,900, 106.50, or mixed tanks being 91.50, right there. Another thing you can look at is speed. Physical tanks are going to be the slowest, generally. Special tanks, generally pretty middle of the road. And mixed tanks are actually the fastest tanks you can have. Okay, so let's go look at a couple tanks that we have in the game. Bane, pretty slow, right? He's also got really high HP, lower speed, okay? That kind of falls under our generalization of what a tank is. Donna Troy, pretty slow. 85 plus 23, middle of the road. But still, general in the larger roster, she is slower. But she has one of the highest HPs in the game. Looking at special tanks, they will have decent damage. They are tankier in that they have HP that can withstand special damage. So there's only 3 of them in the game right now. Mr. Freeze, right here. There's Chemo, right there. And then there's Miss Marvel, which is over here. Not a lot of people have her unlocked yet. But generally, mixed tanks will have okay damage because of a higher intelligence score, which is going to be found right here, 865. Okay, now moving on to the strikers. We have physical strikers and special strikers. Actually, going back real quick, mixed tanks, fastest tanks in the game. If you ever fought against a Superman, right here, he is pretty fast. Mine's not fully geared, but he does gain a pretty good speed score at 47 at gear 11, 41 at gear 10. Hal Jordan falls in the same category. Even Aquaman and Shazam, both under the same mixed tank category. And you'll learn these as you go along. All you have to do is just look at their stats, look for certain bonuses. So HP 9150, speed 47. Those are really good shortcuts that I use to help identify these mixed tanks. And mixed tanks are pretty squishy toward physical damage, especially if you set them up against physical strikers like Katana, or I don't know, who's a striker, Wonder Woman, or Deadshot. Mixed tanks can fall pretty fast. If you're going up against, let's say, Hal Jordan, I would never want to use special damage like Etrigan versus Hal Jordan, or even Superman. I would use just a physical attack. Katana or Wonder Woman will be able to take these guys out pretty quick. Okay, physical strikers. They do have the highest, actually the second highest strength bonuses in the game, and they also have the highest crit chance in the game. Now, when the characters get posted in the announcements, their crit chance isn't posted. But if you have an alliance mate who has a fully geared out character, or if you have a fully geared out character, you'll know that their crit chance is always going to be a base 5% plus 42%. So they do have the highest chances of landing a crit in the game. That translates to roughly 50% of the time they're going to land a crit attack. So an interesting fact about that is that base 47% chance, if you pair that under Deadshot, see he's got 12% additional crit chance to you. Strikers under his team will land crits about, if my math is right, 59% of the time, close to 60%. So you will be landing crits fairly often under Deadshot, basically, and your best chances of maximizing those crits is using a physical striker. So, I mean, if you wanted to build toward that kind of strategy, you can certainly do so. Another thing to note is that they do have one of the lowest HPs in the game. That's why they're squishy, not because they have low agility scores. Your tanks will actually have lower agility scores, but they, make up for that lack of agility with the higher HP. So, interesting fact there. Special strikers, on the other hand, will have the lowest strength bonuses in the game. Kind of makes sense, because why would you give strength-based attacks to a special striker? They do have the highest intelligence bonuses in the game at 1245, and they also have the lowest HP bonuses in the game. So, what does that mean? She's super squishy, but she can hit pretty hard. Super squishy, hits hard. Super squishy, so on and so forth. Of course, there are going to be exceptions, like Jessica Cruz. She has the starting 65% shield to make up for her HP. Guys like Constantine seem hard to get to because they're always hiding behind awareness or invisibility. You get the idea. Etrigan, he is pretty squishy unless he has the starting crit immunity and a small overview. That's what makes him kind of tanky in a sense. So overall, special strikers are easy to kill if you have any strong physical based attacks. Okay, so crit chance on these guys, 30%. So much lower than a physical striker. So you gotta work a lot harder to make them land a crit. But when they do land a crit, it's gonna be pretty devastating. If you ever fought against a Zod or Larfleeze, and when they crit, it's not pretty to look at. Okay, now moving on to the support gear sets. Physical support is probably going to be the only offense-based support role, I would say. There are a few characters that fall under this category. Red Robin, World's Greatest Detective Batman, Atrocitus, even Wonder Girl. Fun fact about physical support characters, they are the only characters who can one-shot tanks on a crit. The reason being is because they have very high crit values, in addition with their high strength. So those together make a very deadly combo. That's why you see people complain a lot about Wonder Girl or Atrocitus. It's because of their stats. They wreak ridiculous amounts of havoc because of their ability to crit. So just to warn you, Swamp Thing as well. One of my favorite things to do with Swamp Thing was pair him with Deadshot Hired Gun. He could one-shot Superman pretty easily. If you did that with Etrigan, Etrigan would not be able to do it. Black Adam, he can't one-shot Superman either. Only Swamp Thing or Wonder Girl can one-shot Superman or Hal Jordan or name any other physical tank or mixed tank. Special tanks like Mr. Freeze, he falls pretty easily to support characters. Again, Wonder Girl, Swamp Thing, those guys will take him out pretty easily. Special support. Okay, one last thing before I move on. Physical support, really easy to identify. Look for the 1040 bonus on their strength. That's all. So, put that into practice. Let's say you want to identify Shazam Jr. Okay? Shazam Jr. What gear set is he? Well, let's look at him. 1040. So, expect him to be a little squishy, but he's going to hit hard. And paired under crit leader like Steppenwolf, he's going to hit really hard. So, this right here is a crit-based team that my alliance mate kind of came up with. Someone dies, Black Adam starts taking over the match. Very straightforward, offensive-based team. Very glass cannon-y, if you want to describe it that way. So pretty easily to take out. Okay. Special support and mixed support. These guys have really low offensive values, but they have very high crit values as well. They're kind of the boom or bust type of gear sets. If I had to describe them, they are squishy, as you can tell. Special support, I don't know. It just feels like they just die very easily, in my experience. Special support characters will be characters like, I think Supergirl, if I'm not mistaken. No, special 6350. She's mixed support. So yes, very squishy. Very low HP values. Her agility values are decent, but like I said, agility doesn't fully describe their defense. Just gotta look for their HP and their resistance. I've had my Supergirl one-shot many times. Special support would probably be something like Blue Beetle. Yeah, Blue Beetle. So, let's look up Blue Beetle real quick, just to confirm. Where are you? Blue Beetle, where are you? There you are. Okay. Nope, he's mixed support. What would be a special support character? Yes. That's why. There's like 3 characters in the game with that gear set: Lex Luthor support, Joker, and Superboy. If you ever use these characters, they do pretty low damage and they are pretty squishy. So keep that in mind when you see those kind of values. Those are pretty good predictors of what they do. Okay. So to wrap things up, gear is king. There's no way around it. How a character performs is dictated by their gear. Let's say a month ago, people saw Ra's al Ghul's kit and it said heavy damage in one of his moves right here. Heavy damage to an enemy, blah blah blah. People thought he'd do pretty good damage. That is not true. Tanks will do okay damage unless they are boosted. So something like Bane. Where are you, Bane? Says here heavy damage. That is true if he's boosted with his strength ups. So there's always gonna be an exception. I said earlier, physical support is pretty low damage, high crit. Obviously, an exception to that rule of being a low damage support character. And then one other thing is that we kind of named this as a community, these gear sets, just to describe what the character does. Generally, the gear sets will correlate to their function. Support characters will bring a lot of utility to the table. Strikers bring a lot of offensive moves. Sometimes there are exceptions. There are striker gear sets that have tank aspects. So Giganta, she is a tank, but because she draws taunts, right? So she's tanky in that regard, or she draws aggro, so that's tanking, but she has a physical support gear set. So, expect her to be kind of squishy. So when people saw her kit and thought she was going to be a good tank, well, she dies to Power Girl. Don't let that surprise you. That's because striker gear sets always crumble to other strikers. Anyway, these are tools that I use to think about gear sets. Whenever I see these gear bonuses, I try and associate them with the character I already know has that gear set, so I can build myself a frame of reference on how they perform. I hope this kind of helps you, because this is what I do. If you have any questions regarding gear, just let me know. And as always,